Hello, off we go again with a wee roundup before I dash off to work. Now, isn't that dedication for you? 3 books. First one up today is The Island of Mists and Miracles, and that's by Victoria Ma. I don't know whether she pronounces the S Mas, but it's M-A-S, so Ma. That's what I've been taught. Translated from the French by Frank Wynne, and it comes to us from Penguin Random House. Victoria Ma wrote the Mad Women's Bowl about 4 years ago. Again, that's a stab, as in I'm not sure of the date. She writes the slim novel with very distilled prose, very poetic, but keeps a very simple line. The kind of Claire Keegan, but not quite that distilled and not the same poetics. And the Mad Women's Ball was set in the Salpêtrière Hospital in Paris, where mad women were put away for the convenience of society. She always deals with some sort of historical social issue. And this one, she has brought the story into the present day because it is a kind of a timeless issue. So hence the title Island of Mists and Miracles, and it's very much miracles that we're talking about. Based mostly, what takes as her departure point, the story of Catherine Labouré, who became the saint associated with the miraculous medals. And she was granted a vision of the Virgin Mary because she had come to the convent in Paris seeking refuge and seeking solace, and gradually became a postulant, then nun, and then was, as the story goes, granted a vision of the Virgin Mary. The current narrative, or the contemporary thread, brings us to Brittany, a place close to my heart, to the Ile de Batz, which is a Breton island off the coast of Roscoff. And this same order of Catherine Labouré has a small congregation. And this nun, Sister Annalise, comes to Ile de Batz, having been told by one of the elderly sisters at the mother house that she would be, at least what she believes is that she has been told is that she will be granted a vision. So she must get to this coast and this must happen. On the same, not on the mainland and on the island, there are families. And on the island, we have a young, or at least the congregation is on the mainland, and you take a boat over to the island. There are 2 young teenage boys. There's Isaac, whose mother had died quite recently. The father is in mourning and isn't really paying attention to this son of his. And the son is one of those sort of dreamy, physically very beautiful children who maybe has become the subject of bullying, and he's kind of taken under the wing of one Madeleine, who runs the local bistro, and she's a bit of a force of nature. And there's also another young teenager called Hugo, who's fascinated by astronomy, by all things scientific, and his family, younger sister, suffers from debilitating asthma, which often means hospitalization. A very loving mother, as far as we can work out, and a very distant father, because there's an older brother who'd, gone off and done things that were tremendous, and this middle child, always the middle child, is sort of kind of has his own interests. But as the story goes on, we realize that we're in this kind of shifting territory of emotional growth, of emotional insecurity. We're going to look at religious, or at least Ma is going to look at kind of religious zeal, blind faith, deep abiding faith. What is a miracle? Who sees what? So one of the young men is found transfixed on a cliff top. And this either intrigues or enrages or bemuses the local congregation. And of course, people then flood to him because this happens day after day after day. And all he can say is that it is a woman that he sees. And of course, we're in this territory of what is the mind doing. She never says, never says this is or this isn't anything. She leaves this very open and is more looking at it. Not what does it matter, but one of the elements that she's really interested in is that irrespective of whether you might believe the thing or believe that there are such things as miracles, that the only thing that really matters is that the faith in God and the unexplained, or the faith in science and its unexplained, is that it should have an accompanying humanity. I thought it was a very brilliant, very thought-provoking, very simple story on many levels, but oh my goodness, so wise. So the naivety and candor of these young men, it's full of emotion, and it's full of, I think, a lot of what we see in the world, which is, I believe this thing, therefore everybody else is wrong, or I don't like you believing this thing, right? It is very topical, and yet has sort of, dipped into that rich theme of miracle and story. Absolutely superb. A very different read from my second one is Imbi Neeme's, a kind of sort of maybe, but probably not. And this also comes to us from Penguin Random House. And this is probably the book that did my heart so much good. And I think we need those. I find a lot of people telling me that they're more interested in perhaps moving away from bleak because of the world. And they want, we want reads that mend our hearts in a way. And I think Imbi Neeme's book has done that. It's very charming. It's very intriguing. It's set in Footscray. And some of you, Imbi has come in to talk to me, so I'm not going to re-deliver the whole plot, but we have a very mid-20s Phoebe Cotton, who's a librarian, and she suffers from a condition called misphonia. And this is set in the 90s in Footscray. You didn't have Dr. Google. She didn't really know what this misphonia was, that it was a known condition, and that it meant that certain noises could drive her absolutely mental. Chewing, slurping, ticking, sort of the noise of life. And when we say absolutely mental, of course, that's an ableist thing. What I really mean is that it gets her into a state where she's not actually, it becomes rage rather than, not that it's ever acted upon. But so you have this Phoebe who's not very sure that she's a proper, respectable human being and shouldn't really be out in the world making friends. Because if people knew what was going on inside her head, they'd probably shun her and think she was grotesque. At least this is what she's believing. We also have a young Suze who lives on the other side of the city, Melbourne, and she lives in a share house, typical student. She's someone who's, well, there's no such thing as a typical student, but someone who's working very hard at not working, at not studying, is constantly under pressure of deadlines and constantly putting herself under this pressure of sort of this, you feel a kind of doomed love with this Jay character who is all about posering and on art and all sorts of weird things. And it was such a lovely giggle to re-meet sort of those student days that we've all, I hope, possibly, been through, where you get derailed so easily and all of those insecurities, and you're always hopelessly loving the wrong person and everything's going wrong and you're not getting ahead with your studies and you should be doing things and you want to go and party. It's the whole world. Beautiful. How do these two young people come across each other? And it's all related to a postcard comes to the house that Phoebe lives in. It's her grandmother's house. Her grandmother is still alive, living in a retirement home. And grandmother's kind of brusque. You feel not superbly sentimental and is always wanting an update on how well she's looking after the garden and how's the mulberry tree, etc., etc. Postcard arrives addressed to someone at this address, and Phoebe has no idea who this person might be and doesn't know what to do with the postcard. So there's a connection. There's a connection between Suze and the postcards and the grandmother and these beautiful landmarks that come from 1970s Europe, which the postcards begin to arrive regularly at the house. So there is a mystery to be unearthed. And of course, there's a tiny little sort of little love story for Phoebe, which was very sweet because Phoebe doesn't believe she's probably worthy of anything, of love or friendship. And this is about her being a brave person. But when she goes to the post office to say, legally, what am I supposed to do with postcards that aren't addressed to me? And comes across a young Monty who's not very good at his job and also sort of same age. And will this all work out or won't it? Will they solve it? It's a gem of a read. It was, I kind of gobbled it up. One for, you sit down and you go, ooh, nice warm fuzzy feeling, cup of tea, no slurping, please. And I just loved it. I think it's a very, very gorgeous book. And the last one, a complete shift. I keep doing this. Thunderhead by Miranda Darling comes to us from Scribe. It's a debut, and I was knocked sideways by this. I have said I think it's one of the best pieces of writing Australian writing I've come across this year. And I do stand by that because I think Miranda Darling has done something extraordinary. The title says it all in a way. It is the inside of someone's head. So we have a mother of two very young sons called Winona Dalloway, and we're going to be with her for one day. And what I really liked is the sense of this day was very elastic. And yes, it's a nod to Virginia Woolf, and it's one of the joys of this piece of reading, of this piece of writing, but as a reader, was all of these little nods to, and very blatant references to, other literature, other thinking, theory, lots of rich, intertextual things. I thought it was tremendously well handled, beautifully written out. But this young woman, Winona Dalloway, is, you learn as we go through, we're living inside her head a lot, is trying to get through a day. There's a dinner party at the end of it. She has these two young sons who have their demands, they don't encroach too much upon the story. Well, on the day. But you find out that she's a third wife. Little sort of glancing suggestions that the first two wives may not have done too well. And we then come across her references to him, he who she married, and understand that she had probably given up a very, a career with probably enormous potential, that she was highly intelligent and highly creative, and has kind of been pushed by him in a way back inside her own mind in order to make sense of what's happening to her. And you understand that he's kind of coercive control. He's pushing her into, well, have you gone to your appointments, sends her texts and reminders, keeps tabs on her. And she becomes more and more, and you see this in the text, you see that the way the text actually physically changes, you get his voice, you get her other voice, which sort of second guesses herself. You get this voice that has to float out of the text and into the other world in order to preserve the integrity of herself. And it's kind of a look at what sort of narcissistic characters, and I mean narcissistic in the medical sense, will try to do, which is make you believe that you've gone a bit, that you're losing your mind, you're losing control over your world, control over your life story, and control over your mind. So we're living this kind of chaos. And she does it with, I know there's a lot of books out there about my trauma. This is so not that. She's in this rich, musical, madcap, amusing sort of take on everything. And we're getting these fragmented voices. We're getting this imposition from the outside. And we get that moment where, ooh, all of a sudden, is this too much? And what can she do about it? It was musical, it was deft, it was very bold in places. I mean, her strokes, her language is bold and defiant, but there's all the time this kind of like, oh, holy camellia, what is going on? And like its title, it's kind of windy, blustery. You're on a ride, and basically just go into it and let her take you on that ride, because it is an absolutely fabulous piece of writing, and I really loved it. That's enough. I'm not going to say any more. Okay, that's it for me. I'll see you again in the next one. Bye.